Alpha King rescued a savage pup no one wanted 3 months later. It changed his destiny. The forest beyond the Alpha King's castle was dark, ancient, and alive with secrets. Shadows moved like whispers, and the wind carried murmurs of forgotten stories. No ordinary person dared enter that forest, for it was said that lost souls and curses wandered between the trees. But the Alpha King cared little for rumors. His life had been built on fear, strength, and solitude. On that cold, gray morning, the Alpha King rode his black stallion along the narrow forest path. His cloak fluttered behind him like a shadow, and his sharp eyes scanned the trees for any sign of danger. Yet it was not danger that called to him, it was something else, something small, broken, and fierce. A sound reached him, a high-pitched, desperate whine. He stopped his horse and leaned forward. There, tangled in the roots of a fallen tree, was a small creature. Its fur was matted, dirt streaked across its tiny frame, and its eyes glowed with a wild, untamed light. The Alpha King had seen many things in his years, but nothing like this. It was a pup, but it seemed almost aware, almost human in its fear and its anger. "Who left you here?" he muttered, dismounting with quiet authority. The pup's ears flattened and it growled softly, a tiny sound that was more warning than threat. The king crouched carefully, showing no signs of fear. He reached out a hand, but the pup bared its small, sharp teeth. "I am no threat," he said, his voice low and commanding. "I am not like the others." The creature tilted its head, watching him, sizing him up. For a moment the forest was silent. The only sound was the wind through the trees and the faint heartbeat of something wild and alive. Then, slowly, the pup relaxed, though it did not approach. It simply watched, waiting for him to prove himself worthy. The Alpha King considered leaving it behind. He had faced monsters, sorcerers, and armies, yet he felt something stirring in him he had not felt for decades, an urge to protect, to care, to claim responsibility. The forest had rejected this creature, and perhaps the world would too, but he would not. He scooped the pup into his arms. It squirmed but did not bite. Its small body pressed against him, tense with fear. "We will see if you belong here," he whispered. "But first, you must survive." The castle gates opened before him like a dark mouth welcoming him home. The halls were silent, the torches flickering against the cold stone walls. Servants avoided his gaze. They feared the Alpha King, and now they also feared the strange creature in his arms. "This is madness," one of his advisors said, stepping forward. "It is not safe. Such creatures are cursed, they bring misfortune." The Alpha King's eyes narrowed. "It is not cursed, it is lost, and it belongs to no one until now." The pup struggled once more, and he set it down carefully. It circled once, sniffing the floor, ears alert. The castle smelled foreign to it, dust, stone, firewood, and a faint trace of the king himself. The Alpha King followed its movements silently, studying its every motion, every flick of its tail and twitch of its ears. He felt an odd connection, as though this tiny, savage creature mirrored something deep within him, his own wildness, his own loneliness. For the next days, the Alpha King dedicated himself to the pup. He named it Fenrir, after an old legend of a wolf destined to change the world. Fenrir was wild, yes, but intelligent beyond any ordinary creature. It learned quickly, sensing danger, reading emotions, even anticipating the king's commands. Yet Fenrir was not easy to handle. It would vanish for hours in the castle's shadowed corridors, slipping through the servants' eyes, exploring forbidden rooms, and sometimes it would simply vanish from sight, only to reappear when it pleased. The Alpha King found himself chasing it, learning its patterns, and slowly, a strange rhythm formed between them, a bond neither fully understood but both felt deeply. It was during one quiet night that the Alpha King first realized how much he had changed. He sat alone in the great hall, the fire casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. Fenrir was perched on a stone ledge, watching him intently. The pup tilted its head, letting out a soft whine. "You are not just a creature," he he said softly. "You are more than what I see. You are something, alive, powerful, and destined." Fenrir's eyes glowed in the firelight. For a moment the air around them seemed to hum with energy, a pulse neither the king nor the pup could explain. It was as if the forest itself had sent this creature, a spark of fate, to ignite something long buried in the Alpha King's heart. But not all in the castle welcomed Fenrir. The servants whispered behind closed doors. The advisors argued in hushed tones about curses and omens. Even the king's closest allies questioned his decision to save the pup. Yet the Alpha King ignored them. He had faced death, betrayal, and darkness before. This was something different. This was hope, fragile but fierce. Then came the first sign that Fenrir was not an ordinary pup. One evening, as the king practiced swordsmanship in the courtyard, a group of thieves broke into the castle. They thought the halls empty, the guards distracted. But Fenrir appeared silently behind them, moving with uncanny speed and precision. Its small form darted between shadows, nipping, biting, and using its weight and speed to throw the attackers into disarray. By the time the guards arrived, the thieves were unconscious, and Fenrir sat quietly as if nothing had happened. The king knelt beside it, astonished. "You are no ordinary creature," he whispered. Fenrir responded with a soft growl, eyes gleaming as if it understood every word. Days passed, and the bond between the Alpha King and Fenrir deepened. The king spoke more openly than he had in years, revealing fragments of his past, tragedies, betrayals, and the loneliness that had built walls around his heart. Fenrir listened with unblinking eyes, sometimes nuzzling him gently, sometimes simply watching with a quiet, patient presence. It was strange to feel understood by a creature, but he did. Yet, as their bond grew, so did the sense of danger. Whispers reached the Alpha King of a prophecy tied to a savage beast that would alter the course of kingdoms. The words were vague, the meaning unclear. Could Fenrir be that beast? Could it be destiny itself walking in the form of a pup? One night the wind rose fiercely, rattling the castle windows. Fenrir whimpered and pawed at the door, agitated. The king approached, sensing something wrong. Suddenly the pup's howl rang out, long, mournful, and filled with a power that shook the walls. The fire flickered and dimmed, shadows stretching like fingers across the stone. The Alpha King's heart tightened. He had seen visions before, but never like this. Images flashed in his mind, dark forests, flames, ancient ruins, and a figure standing at the edge of a cliff, looking toward the sky as lightning tore across the heavens. Fenrir's eyes glowed with an eerie light, almost human in their intensity. "What is it, Fenrir?" the king whispered, though he feared the answer. The pup turned to him, head tilted, and let out a single clear sound that seemed more like a word than a howl. "Mate!" The Alpha King froze. The word echoed in his mind, strange and impossible, yet full of meaning he could not yet comprehend. Fenrir's gaze held him, demanding, questioning, revealing a depth of destiny he had never imagined. In that moment, the king realized that this small, abandoned creature was more than a companion. It was a force that could change everything: his life, his heart, the kingdom, and perhaps even the world. And as the storm raged outside, the Alpha King knew one thing for certain. The story of Fenrir and himself was only beginning. Something ancient had awoken in the pup, something tied to fate, power, and a bond that could not be broken. He knelt beside Fenrir, placing a hand on its small head. "Whatever comes, we will face it together," he whispered, the firelight reflecting in both their eyes. But deep in the shadows of the castle, a presence watched, waiting for the moment to test this bond, to challenge the Alpha King, and to see if he could truly protect what fate had sent him. And somewhere in the dark corners of the forest, an old voice murmured on the wind, "The savage pup shall change the destiny of kings, but only if the heart of the Alpha King opens fully to what is coming." The storm howled. The fire flickered. And Fenrir, small yet fierce, curled at the king's feet, unaware of the incredible journey that awaited them both. The days after the storm passed were quiet, yet charged with a strange tension. Fenrir had changed. The pup's eyes held a sharper intelligence, a knowing that seemed beyond ordinary animals. It no longer bounded clumsily around the castle. It moved with purpose, sniffing every corner, watching every shadow. Even the guards noticed it, how the creature seemed to anticipate danger before it came, how it reacted almost as though it were human. The Alpha King watched silently from the balcony of his chambers. The sun was setting, casting long, gold-and-amber shadows across the castle walls. Fenrir sat in the courtyard below, ears twitching, eyes scanning the horizon. The king felt a pull in his chest, a strange mixture of pride, fear, and fascination. "You are more than a beast," he said softly, almost to himself. "You are part of something greater." Fenrir's head tilted, as though it understood him completely. It trotted over and nuzzled his hand when he stepped outside, its small body pressing against him in trust. The Alpha King had never allowed anyone to touch his heart before, and yet here was a creature that had done so without question. For the next few weeks, the bond between the Alpha King and Fenrir grew stronger. He allowed the pup to explore the castle freely, even permitting it to sleep near his chambers at night. The creature responded in kind, following him silently, alert to every sound, every movement. Sometimes it would curl at his feet, and he would feel a warmth he had long denied himself. Yet not all was calm in the castle. Rumors of Fenrir's true nature reached the ears of the royal advisors. Some whispered of a curse. Others warned of the old prophecy that spoke of a savage beast that would rise to alter the fate of kings and kingdoms. The Alpha King ignored them. He had faced betrayal, war, and death itself. What harm could a small creature, abandoned and fierce, truly bring? But destiny has a way of testing those who think they are in control. One evening, a stranger arrived at the castle gates. She was a healer of great renown, known throughout the lands for her knowledge of ancient curses and magical bloodlines. Her eyes were sharp, her presence commanding, and she carried an aura that made even the Alpha King feel the weight of fate pressing down upon him. "I have come for the creature," she said, her voice steady and calm. "The pup you call Fenrir is not as it seems. Its bloodline is ancient, powerful, and cursed. Only you can help it fulfill its destiny." The Alpha King's eyes narrowed. "And what makes you think I would trust a stranger?" The healer smiled faintly. "Because you already have Alpha King. You have protected it when the world abandoned it. That is the first step. But there are forces gathering that will test both of you. Time is short." Fenrir, who had been quietly watching from the courtyard, whined softly, its ears flattened, eyes flicking toward the healer. The Alpha King stepped forward, placing a hand on its head. "I have not given up on it," he said, "and I will not now, not ever." The healer inclined her head. "Then we must begin. Fenrir must learn control, strength, and wisdom. Its power will not awaken fully without guidance." Training began immediately. The Alpha King watched as Fenrir responded to the healer's instructions. The pup moved with grace and precision, its senses heightened, its body lithe and strong. The castle became a place of movement and energy, with Fenrir leaping, running, and learning faster than any ordinary creature could. During this time, the Alpha King found himself opening up in ways he had not for decades. He spoke of the burdens of the crown, the loneliness of power, and the fears that had kept him distant from everyone. Fenrir listened, as if absorbing his words, its eyes full of understanding. Sometimes the king would catch himself speaking aloud to the creature as though it were human, and he would smile at the absurdity of it. Yet the shadow of the prophecy lingered. One night, the Alpha King found Fenrir staring out the window toward the forest. The wind carried whispers, almost voices, and a chill ran down his spine. He approached quietly, placing a hand on the pup's head. "Fenrir, what do you see?" he asked. The pup whined softly and pawed at the window. Suddenly, the Alpha King saw visions flash before him, forests in flames, distant mountains, ancient ruins, and a figure standing alone, waiting for something only destiny could provide. Fenrir's body tensed, and its eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. "This is only the beginning," the healer had said days before. "The world will seek to claim Fenrir's power. You must protect it or all will be lost." The Alpha King clenched his fists. "Then I will protect it," he vowed, "even if the world stands against me." But the kingdom was not idle. Word of Fenrir's strange nature spread like wildfire. Nobles feared what they did not understand. Some envied the Alpha King's control over the creature. Others plotted to capture it, believing they could harness its power for themselves. One evening, the Alpha King returned from a hunt to find the castle unusually quiet. Fenrir was nowhere in sight. Panic surged in his chest. He called its name, moving through the halls, searching every shadowed corner. Then he heard a soft whine from the training grounds. He rushed there and found Fenrir surrounded by a group of intruders, mercenaries hired by an unknown enemy. The pup growled, its small frame bristling with courage, but it was outnumbered. The Alpha King drew his sword, moving swiftly to protect it. The intruders paused, startled by the sudden appearance of the feared Alpha King. With a single, commanding motion, he drove them back, but he knew this was only a warning. After the intruders fled, Fenrir ran to him, pressing against his chest. Its eyes held something new: recognition, trust, and an unspoken promise. The Alpha King knelt, running a hand through its fur. "You are more than you appear," he whispered. "And so am I," the healer returned the next day, her expression grave. "The prophecy is awakening," she said. "Fenrir's power grows, but so do the dangers. You must be ready. The world will come for it, and it will test both of you beyond anything you have faced." The Alpha King nodded, determination hardening in his gaze. "Then we will face it together. Whatever comes, I will not fail." Days turned into weeks, and Fenrir continued to grow. Its intelligence became startling. It seemed to understand more than any ordinary animal. It could anticipate the Alpha King's thoughts, read emotions, and sometimes, in moments of quiet, it would look at him with a depth that made his heart ache. One night, the Alpha King sat in the courtyard, watching the stars. Fenrir curled beside him, small and warm against the cold stone. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying secrets of old magic and destiny. The king felt a strange peace, a sense of connection he had never known. "You are no ordinary pup," he murmured. "You are my companion, my ally, my destiny." Fenrir pressed its head against him, eyes closing in trust. The Alpha King smiled faintly, feeling something he had not felt in years, a flicker of hope, a spark of something that could heal the scars of his heart. But peace was fleeting. The healer's words echoed in his mind. The world will seek to claim Fenrir's power. He knew that soon the danger would come, not just to Fenrir, but to him, to the castle, to everything he held dear. And then, as the moon reached its peak, Fenrir's body stiffened. Its eyes glowed faintly again, and it let out a low, eerie sound, a growl that carried intelligence, warning, and power. The Alpha King felt a shiver run through him. "Fenrir," he whispered, standing. The pup turned to him, eyes bright, as though trying to communicate something urgent. The wind howled, and a shadow fell across the courtyard. The Alpha King's heart tightened. He realized that whatever was coming would not wait for them to be ready. It would arrive, sudden and unstoppable, testing the bond between man and beast, testing the courage of a king and the loyalty of a creature born to change destinies. Fenrir barked sharply, running to the edge of the courtyard and staring into the darkness. The Alpha King followed, sword in hand. Beyond the castle walls, the forest seemed to stir, shadows shifting unnaturally, as if alive. The prophecy was awakening. The savage pup, small and fierce, was ready to step into the world it was born to change. And the Alpha King knew in the deepest part of his soul that everything he had known, his solitude, his power, his heart, was about to be challenged. The pup he had rescued, the creature no one wanted, held the key to a destiny that would intertwine with his own in ways he could not yet imagine. The night stretched on, filled with tension, whispers of fate, and the quiet, determined heartbeat of a creature destined for greatness. The Alpha King tightened his grip on his sword, and Fenrir growled again, low and fierce. Together, they would face what was coming. But the first strike was not yet revealed, and the castle would soon learn that the prophecy was not just a tale to frighten children. It was a warning, and the savage pup had already begun to change the course of destiny. The days after the strange night in the courtyard were tense. The castle seemed quieter, yet every shadow felt alive. Even the walls themselves seemed to watch, as if the prophecy was awakening, and the kingdom itself had grown aware of what was to come. Fenrir had changed. No longer the small, abandoned pup, it moved with a strange grace, sharp intelligence, and power that seemed almost unnatural. The Alpha King watched it carefully, feeling both awe and worry. He had seen glimpses of the creature's abilities, but nothing prepared him for the truth. Fenrir was more than animal. One evening, as the king practiced his sword movements in the training yard, Fenrir approached silently. Its eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight. Suddenly it leapt with astonishing speed, moving between the king's swings with precise timing. The creature's agility, strength, and intelligence were beyond anything natural. "You are extraordinary," the king whispered, lowering his sword. Fenrir circled him, tail swishing, almost like a guardian testing him. He knelt, placing a hand on its head. "But you are not safe here. The world will see you as a weapon, as a threat." Fenrir nuzzled his hand as if to say it understood. It had learned his moods, his commands, and even his fears. In ways the king could not explain, the pup had become a reflection of himself, wild, fierce, loyal, and intelligent. The healer had warned him of this. "Fenrir's power is growing," she said. "It is not merely a creature, it is destiny, but with growth comes danger. Those who seek to control it will come, and they will not leave without a fight." The Alpha King had dismissed her warnings before, but now he felt the weight of her words. The castle, once safe, felt fragile. He could sense eyes watching from beyond the walls, the faint whispers of those who desired power. Fenrir, too, sensed it. The pup growled low in its throat, ears alert. Days passed, and signs of Fenrir's abilities became impossible to ignore. It could move silently, almost vanish in the shadows, and sense danger before it arrived. One night, while the Alpha King walked along the castle walls, Fenrir's growl froze him. Shadows in the distance moved unnaturally, and a chill ran through the air. The Alpha King's instincts sharpened. Something or someone was approaching. The intruders came under the cover of night. Mercenaries, armed and silent, moved toward the castle, intent on capturing Fenrir. The Alpha King positioned himself at the entrance, sword ready. Fenrir crouched beside him, ears pricked, eyes glowing faintly. When the attackers struck, Fenrir moved first. It darted among them, agile and swift, using its small size and strength to knock weapons away and trip their feet. The Alpha King followed, his sword flashing in the moonlight, moving in perfect rhythm with the creature beside him. By the time the fight ended, the mercenaries lay unconscious, scattered across the courtyard. Fenrir sat proudly, chest heaving, gaze fixed on the Alpha King as if asking silently, "Is this enough? Did I protect you well?" "You did well," he said softly. "But this is only the beginning. They will return, and next time they may not come alone." The healer arrived at dawn, her expression grim. "You have awakened the prophecy," she said. "Fenrir is no ordinary pup. It carries the blood of an ancient line, one that has been cursed and protected for centuries. Others will seek it for power. They will not stop until they succeed or you fail." The Alpha King's jaw tightened. "Then I will not fail. Fenrir will not fail. Together, we will face them. But the danger was not only external. Within the castle, the king began to feel an inner struggle. He had always been strong, stoic, and controlled. But Fenrir's presence awakened emotions long buried, affection, longing, and a desire for connection he had never allowed himself. He found himself speaking aloud to the creature during quiet nights, confessing fears, regrets, and dreams he had kept hidden. Fenrir listened, its eyes understanding, its small body warm and comforting. One evening, the Alpha King sat by the fire in the great hall. Fenrir curled beside him, its head resting on his knee. The wind outside whispered of storms yet to come. He thought of his past, betrayals, lost loves, and the loneliness of power. He had feared vulnerability, yet here with Fenrir he felt a strange comfort. "You are no ordinary creature," he murmured. "You have shown me what it means to care, to hope, to trust." Fenrir's ears twitched, and it pressed closer to him as though affirming his words. Then, without warning, Fenrir stiffened. Its fur bristled and a low growl rumbled from its throat. The Alpha King stood immediately, senses sharp. Outside, the shadows of the forest seemed alive, moving unnaturally. Fenrir's eyes glowed brightly, and the air hummed with tension. "They are coming," the healer said, appearing silently behind him. "And this time it will not be a simple attack. The forces gathering are dark, cunning, and relentless. Fenrir's power will be tested, and so will yours." The night stretched into a tense silence. Fenrir darted to the window, tail lashing, growling softly at the distant forest. The Alpha King followed, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword, heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. The prophecy was no longer distant whispers. It was here, alive, and demanding their attention. Over the next days, Fenrir's transformation became undeniable. Its strength increased, its senses sharpened, and occasionally the Alpha King glimpsed a strange glow in its eyes. He knew that the creature was not fully aware of its own power yet, but the signs were clear. Something ancient stirred within it, waiting to awaken. One evening, as the moon rose high, Fenrir leapt suddenly into the courtyard. Its small body seemed to radiate energy. The Alpha King followed, sensing instinctively that this was no ordinary display. Fenrir circled him, eyes glowing, and then paused, staring directly into his. "You are ready," the pup seemed to say, not with words, but with a presence that carried meaning beyond language. The Alpha King's breath caught. He had faced enemies, curses, and death itself, but never had he felt the weight of destiny pressing so heavily upon him. Fenrir was no longer a pup. It was a being of power, courage, and purpose. It had grown beyond the expectations of anyone who had ever seen it. But the Alpha King also understood the danger. Those who sought to control Fenrir would not hesitate to destroy anyone in their way. And he knew that protecting the creature would mean facing his own fears, his own vulnerabilities, and the possibility of loss unlike any he had ever known. Then, one night, the castle was shaken by an attack unlike any before. Dark figures slipped through the forest, moving with precision and skill. They came not with swords but with shadows, magic that twisted the air and clouded vision. The Alpha King and Fenrir faced them together. Fenrir moved with astonishing speed, countering attacks before they could land, using its intelligence and agility to protect both the king and the castle. The Alpha King fought beside it, his sword moving in perfect rhythm with the creature. Together they became a force neither enemy nor shadow could anticipate. But even as they fought, the Alpha King realized something alarming. Fenrir's power was awakening, yes, but the more it grew, the more unpredictable it became. The pup's instincts were sharp, but its understanding of its own strength was limited. If left unchecked, it could be as dangerous to allies as to enemies. The battle ended with silence. The attackers vanished, leaving behind only shadows and the faint hum of magic in the air. Fenrir sat beside the Alpha King, breathing heavily, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. The Alpha King knelt beside it, placing a hand on its head. "You have grown stronger," he said softly, "but we must learn control. Together, we will face what is coming." "I will not let anything harm you." Fenrir pressed its head against him, a silent acknowledgement of their bond. The healer appeared, watching from the shadows. "The prophecy is moving faster than expected," she said. "The world will not wait. Fenrir's power is awakening fully. Soon, the trials will be greater than either of you can imagine." The Alpha King's jaw tightened. He knew she was right. The bond he shared with Fenrir was extraordinary, but so too were the dangers that awaited. He had to be ready, not just to fight for the creature's survival, but for the destiny they were both bound to fulfill. And then, as the night deepened, Fenrir let out a howl, a sound that carried through the forest, strong and unwavering. The Alpha King felt it in his bones, a signal that something monumental was approaching. The prophecy was no longer whispers or shadows. It was alive, breathing, moving toward them with inevitability. The Alpha King stood beside Fenrir, sword in hand, heart steady but alert. Whatever was coming, he knew they would face it together. But in the depths of the forest, eyes glimmered in darkness, and a presence watched them, ancient, patient, and intent on testing both king and beast. The savage pup, once abandoned, now powerful and wise beyond its years, had begun its journey. And the Alpha King, who had ruled with strength and solitude for so long, would have to confront not only the dangers that threatened them but the deepest truths of his own heart. The night held its breath. The storm of destiny was approaching. The forest surrounding the Alpha King's castle was alive with shadows and whispers. Even the wind carried an almost tangible tension, warning of what was coming. Fenrir paced at the castle gates, body tense, ears alert. Its eyes glowed softly, reflecting the moonlight, filled with intelligence, power, and a quiet determination. The Alpha King stood beside it, sword in hand, heart steady yet alert. This was no ordinary night. The prophecy that had shadowed their lives for months was finally approaching its climax. The Alpha King could feel it in his bones, in the very air around him. Fenrir, once a small abandoned pup, now radiated strength and purpose. Together they would face the forces gathering against them. The first attack came swiftly, like a shadow stretching across the land. Dark figures emerged from the forest, moving with precision and magic. Their leader was a sorcerer of great power, an ancient being who had watched the prophecy unfold for decades and now sought to control it for his own ends. Fenrir growled low, body coiled like a spring, eyes blazing. The Alpha King tightened his grip on his sword. He had faced countless enemies before, but none like this. The sorcerer was not just strong, he was cunning, able to manipulate shadows and twist reality itself. The battle began. Fenrir darted forward, moving with incredible speed, its claws and teeth striking with precision, while the Alpha King's sword flashed in the moonlight. The castle became a whirlwind of motion, shadows, and magic. The attackers fell back, but the sorcerer was clever, using the darkness to shield himself and confuse their senses. Yet Fenrir was no longer the pup he had once rescued. Its powers had grown beyond imagination. The creature leapt into the shadows, disappearing and reappearing with astonishing agility. Its howl carried power, shaking the ground and dispersing the dark magic around them. The Alpha King followed, moving in perfect rhythm with Fenrir, trusting the creature completely. As the battle raged, the Alpha King realized something he had not before. Fenrir was not just a companion. It was destiny itself, a force born to challenge fate and rewrite it. And he, too, was part of that destiny. His strength alone could not overcome the sorcerer. Only with Fenrir, united in trust and bond, could they succeed. The sorcerer raised his staff, sending a wave of dark energy toward them. Fenrir leapt forward, intercepting it, its small but powerful body glowing with an inner light. The magic collided, creating a burst of energy that lit up the night sky. The Alpha King felt the surge of power beneath him, and for a moment he feared the force would overwhelm them both. But then something remarkable happened. Fenrir's body glowed brighter, energy radiating in waves that pushed back the shadows. Its howl became a song of defiance, a force that seemed to resonate with the very forest around them. The Alpha King felt his own power align with it, a rhythm of strength, courage, and unity. Together they were unstoppable. The sorcerer faltered, his shadows scattering. Fenrir lunged, claws and teeth striking with precision, while the Alpha King pressed forward with his sword. The enemy stumbled back, his power failing against the bond of the king and the creature. With a final, piercing roar, Fenrir leapt, closing the distance, and the sorcerer fell, defeated, his magic dissipating into the night. The castle was silent again, save for the wind and the faint crackle of the fire in the courtyard. Fenrir lowered its glowing eyes, chest heaving, and trotted to the Alpha King. He knelt, placing a hand on the creature's head. "You have done more than I could have imagined," he said softly. "You have saved us all and yourself." Fenrir pressed its head against him, a gesture of loyalty and trust. The Alpha King's heart felt lighter, freer than it had in decades. He realized that through this battle, he had learned more than strategy or strength. He had learned the value of trust, of connection, and of opening one's heart. The healer arrived as the first light of dawn touched the castle walls. She observed Fenrir and the Alpha King quietly, her expression softening. "The prophecy has been fulfilled," she said. "Fenrir has awakened fully, and you, Alpha King, have embraced the destiny that was always yours. But remember, this is only the beginning. What has been won today sets the stage for the future. The bond you share will shape it for better or worse." The Alpha King nodded, understanding her words. "I will not let it falter. Fenrir and I, we are stronger together than we could ever be apart." For the first time in his life, the Alpha King allowed himself to feel complete. He had always been a ruler defined by strength, fear, and solitude. But now, beside Fenrir, he realized that power without connection was empty. This small creature, once abandoned, had changed him entirely, showing him courage, loyalty, and the power of love that did not weaken but strengthened. The castle slowly returned to its rhythm. Guards patrolled, the sun rose, and the wind carried whispers of the night's events into the far corners of the kingdom. Fenrir had become more than a creature. It was a symbol, a reminder of hope, courage, and destiny fulfilled. Yet even as peace settled over the castle, the Alpha King knew the world would never be entirely quiet. The prophecy might have been realized in part, but destiny was never truly complete. New challenges would arise, new threats would emerge, and Fenrir's power, now fully awakened, would be sought by those who did not understand its true purpose. He watched Fenrir playing in the courtyard, agile and joyful despite the weight of its powers. The pup, once weak and abandoned, now radiated strength, wisdom, and confidence. The Alpha King felt a deep pride mixed with a sense of humility. Fenrir had not only survived, it had transformed, and in doing so it had transformed him as well. The healer's voice lingered in his mind. "The bond you share will shape the future." He understood now that this bond was more than companionship. It was trust, unity, and love, a force stronger than magic, stronger than prophecy, stronger than fear. Days turned into weeks, and the kingdom slowly returned to normal, though the Alpha King and Fenrir remained vigilant. They trained together, explored the forest, and strengthened their bond. The king spoke aloud more than he ever had, sharing his thoughts, his fears, and his dreams. Fenrir listened, always alert, always present, a silent guardian and companion. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the Alpha King stood atop the castle wall, looking out over the forest. Fenrir sat beside him, tail curled, ears twitching at every sound. He placed a hand on the creature's head, feeling the warmth and trust that had grown between them. "You have changed my destiny," he whispered. not just by your strength, but by your courage, your loyalty, and your heart. Together, we are unstoppable." Fenrir nuzzled his hand in response. Its eyes, now filled with understanding, seemed to promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. As the night settled over the castle, a soft wind rustled through the trees. The Alpha King felt it in his soul, a sense of peace but also anticipation. Life would continue, challenges would come, but he was no longer alone. He had Fenrir, and through this bond he had discovered the deepest strength of all, the power to trust, to love, and to face destiny without fear. The healer watched from a distance, smiling faintly. "The prophecy has been fulfilled," she said quietly. But destiny is never truly finished. Those who are strong, who are brave, and who are bonded by trust will always shape the world. The Alpha King and Fenrir have begun a new chapter, one that will echo through the ages. And as the stars sparkled above, Fenrir and the Alpha King stood side by side, ready to face whatever future awaited them. The savage pup, once abandoned and feared, had changed his life, and together they had reshaped the kingdom's destiny. The night was quiet, the wind gentle, and the world seemed to hold its breath, knowing that a new era had begun. Fenrir's howl echoed softly through the forest, not a sound of warning, but a song of triumph, courage, and the bond between a king and the creature who had changed his life forever. For the Alpha King, the lesson was clear. Strength was not just in power, but in trust. Courage was not just in battle, but in opening one's heart. And destiny was not a path written in stone, but a journey shaped by those willing to face it together. And so, under the stars, the Alpha King and Fenrir looked toward the horizon, ready for all that the future held. Their story was far from over, but they faced it united, unbroken, and unstoppable.